Well, guys, it's an absolute pleasure. I have got Blind Guardian singer Hansi, which Blind Guardian are coming to Australia very shortly for 2 dates only, one in Sydney and one in Melbourne. From the brand new album that came out early this year called Beyond the Red Mirror, and I want to welcome the fans of Blood, Sweat and Metal, Hansi. Good evening from Australia, Hansi.
Good evening from Minsk, Jamie. It's great to be on the show.
It's good. And I've got to say, what an awesome news. The news been out for a few months now that you guys are coming to Australia on the back of a new album called Beyond the Red Mirror. 2 dates, Sydney and Melbourne. I know there's some fans in Australia want more dates in other capital cities, but it's out of your control. You don't book the tours, the promoters do. But I want to say, between Beyond the Red Mirror album and the one back in 2010, there was a big gap. And it's probably the longest break that you guys have ever done in your career. Should you just go through that and tell the fans the reason why there was such a break in that period of time?
Well, I suppose it might be the longest one. I'm not exactly sure because it appears like 5 years, but in general it's just 4 years and 4 months, which is almost natural for us. But it could be the longest one. There are reasons. The main reason I would possibly say is based on the complex music on Beyond the Red Mirror. But there's more to tell because we as well have extended touring over and over again for At the Edge of Time. And this finally ended up with an amount of 2 years, which we have not had on the agenda in the beginning. And this, of course, was delaying our songwriting. Then when we finished the touring, we did a best of and we revisited some of our old stuff there and we're stuck in studio work for another half year. So all in all, the production and the songwriting for Beyond the Red Mirror took another 2 years, and that's where we are, 4.5 years.
I want to ask...
Too bad.
Yeah, that's great. I want to ask something in regard to that too. With the bands around the 80s and the 90s, you were basically pushed by the record company to bring out albums nearly every 6 to 9 months, even in between tours. Nowadays, there's been a bit more of a laid-back approach to getting new material out nowadays.
Sorry, you've been gone. Can you repeat that? There was I had a break here.
Yeah, right.
Breakdown.
You there now? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just basically, just going on from that, I see this approach back in the 80s where the bands were predominantly pushed more from the record labels because there was such a high competitiveness within the music industry and that. And bands will bring it out new material or albums out 6 to 9 months in between albums. Even in between, while they're on tour, they get pulled off a tour and go into a recording studio to do an album. Nowadays, it's not like that. It's a bit more laid back and a bit more stretchy and a bit more time to adjust a few things and repolish the fine strings and whatnot. Do you see that back in the 80s compared to now, that there was just so much competitiveness that bands were bringing out albums constantly?
Well, I felt the demand on the bands in the 80s has not been that high. This is one point. It was more rock and roll what we did back then. So it was easier to come up with songs, and there was still more space, to come up with new things because the scene was establishing itself. That helped a little bit. And also the simple fact that people were satisfied with 36 minutes of music in comparison to 50 to 80 minutes, which you have to supply nowadays. We were just pushed once, and that was really in the 80s when we finished Battalions of Fear to come up with Follow the Blind as fast as possible. I believe it was a good move back then because the band was not established, and the scene back then was really, forgetting fairly quickly. But once a band has established its brand, I would suppose people have higher expectations. And at that point, we as musicians have to be more careful with what we are releasing. And so from the early 90s on, we have been very careful with any of our release. Of course, when we were young and I said the demand was not that high, the songs came more spontaneous back then. And nowadays it is a little more of work, but the pressure at the very end is still the same. We need to please ourselves, and we need to satisfy the listener, and this is the highest aim. And no matter how long it takes, we take the time.
Yeah. Well, with the Beyond the Red Mirror album, it's a concept album, which is also a sequel to The Imagination from the Other Side.
Right.
I want to ask, why now go into a concept album approach again? Because was the story completed after Imagination from the Other Side, or was this another chapter to continue on from that? Because concept albums tend to make or break bands nowadays, especially when, Pink Floyd brought out The Wall, and that was an awesome album. But if you look at Kiss, when they brought out The Elder, which was a concept album, it didn't do well at all. So
yeah.
I want to ask, how was the creative mindset going into the studio with the concept of the story that you already had prior to going in and rebuilding that phrase again?
Well, first I have to say that in Blind Guardian's case, the music always comes first. And when we created the first songs, I've had pictures popping up in my mind about possible things to sing about. But I did not really pay attention to it. When we got deeper into songwriting and were close to start the production for the album, I just felt that these songs always came in pairs, and I was reminded on two different musical universes. So this was the point when it first came into my attention that a concept album for this pieces of music we have just accomplished at that point would probably do the trick. And then I was chasing for something which could be suitable for a story like that. And somehow my attention fell back to Imaginations, where I was confronted with the album artwork, delivering two different worlds from the perspectives of the mirror. And this was basically the magic moment when I said, well, yeah, I could go back there, because some of the music also had musical sort of links to Imaginations in kind of setup of songs. So I revisited the lyrics of Imaginations and just figured that there was that story told in Bright Eyes, and the story ends, which has not been really finished. And well, then I just started creating a story related to it, which was a little inspired also by a book I read. I read Stephen King's Dr. Sleep, and he revisited his protagonist of The Shining in this book, like 30 years later. And I just thought, well, it might be a good idea to do the same thing. There's a time span in between, and we take that as the realistic time span, and made that. I then made that a part of the story as well.
I have got some numbers here that have been given to me. The album's been out for a few months now, and over in the Germany album chart, it ranked number 4 in the top 100. Is that the highest ranking that you guys ever had in your career? Once an album's been brought out?
No, we have had a few number 1 albums in other countries like Japan, for example, Greece. Mm-hmm. And we also had some number 1 singles in some of the countries. But for Germany, our highest ranking has been number 2, which we could not accomplish with this one due to heavy competition. Still, it's a good result. All the albums we've done ever since Nightfall, they go straight into the top 10, and they are located in the top 100 for quite a few weeks, which is maybe the more important sign, because usually if an album is released here in Germany, the album goes in very high and then disappears quickly. But since we are more or less a mainstream success in Germany and some other pieces of Europe, the album stays in the charts for quite a few weeks, sometimes months.
And all the success go to you guys as well, because you guys have done your homework. You've been around for a while, and you're still doing the right things in the music world. I just want to ask, when you first started out, what was the mindset as the band as a whole? Was it you thought you were going to get the success eventually, or were you just going through the motions trying to get there at the beginning?
We thought when we got the record company, the most difficult things were accomplished already. We really believed that we would make it to the top within the next 12 months after the release of Battalions of Fear, which obviously did not happen. We just sold a good handful of albums, which, made people aware of us. The good thing was that we were not really shocked by it, even though our expectations had been completely different. We just kept on working. And from that point on, we really learned everything about the business and, how, the industry works and how difficult it is to become successful no matter how good you are. And we just never gave up. So after that, it was a realistic looking at things. While, of course, when you're young, you tend to dream a little more, and you tend to believe things are always easier. And nowadays, I have to say, we are established, but we are still hungry. We still have the feeling that our music can be supplied to more people than already know the band without, changing the style, because we really believe in what we're doing.
You said that you're hungry for more. What one thing that you're really, really hungry for? What that one thing that you want to achieve that you haven't achieved just yet?
Well, basically, that would be based to more recognition. Like, for instance, as you mentioned in the beginning, we just played 2 shows in Australia. We would love to play like 12 shows and, come by and headline festivals, for example, which is not given to us now. But this is something we definitely look up for, and this is what we're doing. Musically, I would say we have accomplished so many things. I still believe that we can do the one and only album which will be considered as the Blind Guardian album. But other than that, it would be really related to success, to physical success in terms of, being
well, what album success. What album from Blind Guardian you think most fans will go to? That's the one album that they always go to. Or haven't you made it yet?
I have no idea. It's changing from period to period. I personally would say it's Nightfall in Middle-earth, and I know that a good majority of fans really love that, while the ones who are not loving it, they do not, pay a lot of attention to this album. This makes it very difficult for me to answer which album is the Blind Guardian album. Then on other aspects, I thought it would be Imaginations from the Other Side, for example. By just figuring out now that it might be somewhere far beyond it. It's really strange. I would not be able to tell you. And some people already start saying Beyond the Red Mirror might be the Blind Guardian album. But this can change within the next 4 years completely.
Well, fans, Blind Guardian is hitting Australia very shortly. One in Sydney, one in Melbourne. I believe one of the shows is sold out, and the other one is very close to being sold out as well. If that has not been sold out, please go to metropolistouring.com to get your tickets while they're hot, because this is an exciting adventure and an event not to be missed. And also, if you have not got beyond the... I'll say that again, I'm losing my voice. Sorry about that.
No problem.
If you haven't got Beyond the Red Mirror album, please get it, because this is an album that translates another spectrum of what Blind Guardian is all about, because this album, I got it early this year from my record store. It's been played constantly on my turntable. It's a fantastic album from top to bottom. And Hansi, I want to give all credit to you, man, because this album is just a splendid album. It really is.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm happy to hear that.
And guys, we'll go back to the regular program. We're going to play a couple of tracks off that album so we can get you a bit of a taste of what to come. And Hansi, we cannot wait for you guys to come down to Australia in the next couple of weeks to really showcase the performance of Blind Guardian.
Thank you very much. We are looking forward to it as well.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care, Jamie. Bye.
Take care. Bye.